Z stood in the heart of his studio, surrounded by unfinished works that were scattered like fragments of his soul. The Moroccan-born artist had always found solace in the colors of his homeland, vibrant reds, deep blues, and golden yellows that mirrored the streets of Marrakesh, where he settled for a few years already. But in his 30s, the warmth of those colors had dimmed. The vibrancy was overshadowed by a creeping darkness that he could not escape. His once steady brushstrokes had slowed to a crawl, his inspiration drained by years of inner turmoil. It was in this time of despair that the Lady of the Heart came to life. The series began as an attempt to cope with personal tragedies, grief, loss, and the slow unraveling of his identity. Every stroke of the brush was an effort to make sense of the chaos within him, to find a way to reconcile the man he was with the man he had become. But there was something about this painting, in particular, that refused to be rushed. Z had started the painting during the darkest period of his life. His partner had passed away suddenly, leaving behind a void that nothing could fill. She had been his muse, his anchor. With her gone, Z found himself adrift, untethered to anything solid. His art had always been his refuge, but even that felt distant, unreachable. The grief that weighed on him seeped into his work, turning it into a reflection of his inner conflict. The painting shows a woman encased in a sphere, her expression poised, but her face fractured as if she is caught between worlds. The bold colors around her, deep blues, purples, and the stark contrast of yellows, create a sense of confinement, as though she is trapped within herself. It was a mirror of Z's emotional state, where the boundaries between reality and his internal battles were blurring. Every crack in the woman's face was a crack in his own heart, each one representing the wounds that grief had left behind. 4 years, Z struggled with this painting, unsure how to finish it. He would stand for hours in front of the canvas, brush in hand, yet unable to bring himself to make the final strokes. Each time he tried, the image would shift, as though the woman in the painting was refusing to be completed. She was incomplete, just like him. The more he worked on her, the more his own life felt fractured, broken in places that seemed irreparable. But then, something changed. One night, as he stood before the painting, exhausted and worn from years of wrestling with his mind, Z saw something new. It wasn't the cracks in the woman's face or the sharp angles of the sphere that caught his attention, it was her eyes. Despite the fractured exterior, her eyes held a quiet strength. There was a calmness in her gaze that had eluded him for so long. It was as if the woman in the painting was no longer a symbol of his brokenness but of his resilience. She wasn't trapped, she was choosing to stand within the sphere, embracing the fragments of herself rather than fighting them. Z realized then that the painting wasn't about being broken, it was about the beauty of being whole, even when parts of you feel shattered. The cracks were not flaws, they were part of the journey. They told a story of survival, of emerging from the darkness with a new understanding of who you are. It was in that moment of clarity that Z found the courage to finish the painting. The last few strokes came with ease, as though the painting had been waiting for this revelation. The colors softened, blending harmoniously around the woman's fractured face, creating a sense of coherence where there had once been chaos. The sphere no longer felt like a cage, but a protective boundary, a space where the woman could exist as her true self, fractured, yet whole. When Z stepped back and looked at the finished painting, he felt a shift within himself. The woman he had painted was no longer a reflection of his pain but of his transformation. She was the Lady of the Heart, a symbol of the journey he had been on, the struggle to reconcile the man he thought he should be with the man he truly was. Finishing the painting marked a turning point in Z's life. It prompted him to make significant changes, to leave behind the city where he had been living and start anew. 4 years, he had been searching for something outside of himself to give him clarity, but it was through his art that he finally found it. The Lady of the Heart had guided him through the darkness, and in doing so, she had helped him embrace his true identity. The painting became the centerpiece of his series, a testament to the lessons he had learned in his 30s. Each painting in the series symbolized a period of struggle, a chapter of his life where he had fought to find meaning in the midst of despair. But the Lady of the Heart was different. She wasn't just about struggle, she was about acceptance, about finding peace in the fragments. Z titled the painting Lady of the Heart to signify the moment when he learned to let go of his preconceived notions of self and embrace the man he had become. It was a moment of profound clarity, a new beginning that had been waiting for him all along. And just as the woman in the painting gazes out from her sphere with quiet strength, Z now stands in the world with the same resilience, knowing that even in brokenness, there is beauty.